And it's time. Welcoming y'all back to The Matrix. It's Stevie B, Boston. Y'all know what it is. Come back to the live, to the stream, whatever you want to call it, with the Boston recap Celtics season. Y'all see the shirt, you know what it is, you know what time of year it is. It's rolling around into the playoffs. We're going to start recapping daily games, our thoughts on teams going into the playoffs and who's really got a chance. Me personally, going by the Celtics. I got some thoughts on the Celtics and the Lakers, being as those are going to be the two teams that we cover the most going into the playoffs, being that I'm the Celtics man. When I get with the Mel man, y'all meet him soon. He's going to talk nothing Lakers, but the Lakers game. All right, so off rip, we already know that the Celtics are locked in the 7th seed. For some crazy reason, they just seem to be losing. All right, now granted, you have in-between lineups. Kemba out, this person out, Tatum out, Jaylen Brown out. These guys, I feel like it's not due to injury. I feel like there's some sort of systemic. Well, at this point, it's due to injury based on Jaylen Brown's injury a couple of games ago and what happened to both him and Tatum this previous game. It's unfortunate because what I saw was with Marcus Smart coming back from injury, Tatum having come back from COVID earlier in the season, Jaylen Brown had been the consistent one, and they had given him some games here and there. Kemba, obviously, during that 6-game winning streak, was showing some signs of bounce in his step, and giving him a game in between here and there without a definitive injury. We can understand that. Robert Williams, again, giving him a game or two here and there to make sure that these guys are ready for the playoffs. And essentially, it's to avoid what happened the other night and things that can be long-term injuries or nagging injuries that, I think if anybody's suited to deal with those types of injuries, it's Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Kemba, we can't deal with him having a specific injury. We can't deal with Robert Williams having a specific injury. We can't deal with Marcus Smart anymore having a specific injury. We need those guys at their best, these role players. And with the additions of Fournier and Jabari Parker, guys like that, and and the fact that the second unit is starting to look a little more experienced, I'm gonna say that the Celtics have a shot, to make it to the second round in the playoffs. But it really depends on what seed they end up at. At this point, best case scenario, they'll be the 5th seed because I don't see the Knicks turning around what they've been rolling on. That's 12 out of 13 while you had a 6-game winning streak, but then you go back to back, win-loss. Losing again, teams you're not supposed to lose to, but winning against teams that should have a shot against you while being down 31 specific game and then coming back, sure, but then losing the very next game. It's a merry-go-round this season. You got to consider what it took these young guys in the bubble last year to do it without the veteran leadership of a Gordon Hayward. And I'm not saying that, he would have been the difference. But, yeah, you got a stable guy like that adds an extra dimension. It speaks to how this team would have been stable, at least during the regular season, and won more games, as many games as they would have thought. But nothing coming off the bubble, and everything's now on Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown's shoulders. We know Kemba's not going to be 100%. And then basically it's like, this is you guys' team. We don't have any veteran backups for you guys. We'll put a bunch of guys we drafted behind you. This team has struggled to develop. And clearly you've seen frustrations from certain people like Jaylen Brown, but ultimately this team's not going to really matter until the, let's say, the postseason. When the postseason comes in, you can speak to how the Celtics are put together. When you have a starting lineup of Kemba Walker, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Robert Williams, and potentially probably Tristan Thompson, but if you get Fournier and a couple other guys playing correctly, you might have a better 4 in there. With the bench, essentially, that you don't want to have to start Marcus Smart. If you can have Marcus Smart off your bench, then you have another floor general. That means Kemba can get his rest. That's really the point of Marcus Smart and where we've always been best. But a lot remains to be seen. I'd say if they have to play in the play-in tournament, I'll take them any day over the teams that are in the play-in tournament. That's fine. But ultimately, the idea is to avoid the play-in tournament. And I believe there are 2 teams ahead of you in the standings that you're better than. So it's really about health now. if they have to finish the season with a health issue, then it sounds like the Celtics and the Lakers are not destined for the finals, even though the Lakers have what's called that X factor in LeBron. Anything's possible. You hit the playoffs with a LeBron. But, talking to two historic franchises right now that are supposed to be at the top of their divisions based on the growth, based on the trades and signings that the Lakers made versus the drafting and the growth that the Celtics were supposed to have made. And this has just not been that right year from a regular season standpoint where everything's come together. You thought you saw them going on a roll back and thought that would lead to a back-end roll in the season. Then you got guys still not being able to play their team for a consistent amount of games or for consecutive games, nonetheless. But ultimately, the Celtics are in a position where, and the Lakers, matter of fact, are in a position to where you can't expect anything from them or can't judge them until the playoffs come. Realistically, we're seeing guys like Giannis do the same thing he does every year. Oh, they have the most wins and they're challenging for the top of the league. That's fine. But we've seen this from these other teams. Brooklyn, it's gonna take an extraordinary effort from the Celtics. Don't get me wrong. I don't think they're gonna be in the Eastern Conference Finals this year, but I didn't think they would be in the Eastern Conference Finals 2 out of the past 4 years, and they were there 3. Maybe only one time did I expect them to actually be there. The Lakers, anything's possible. Do not underestimate the impact of LeBron. And can anyone beat him with an AD and whatever they're able to put around them in 4 out of 7 games? I highly doubt that. He's got to be injured or gone. It's got to be something catastrophic we've never seen. It's got to be something that we've never seen LeBron go through when given the team he needed. Because we've seen LeBron struggle when he didn't have certain things in place, but once he figured out who he was, that we haven't seen LeBron lose. You give him what he needs, and he's going to win. Period. Dennis Schroeder. He's got the COVID issue with him now. Look at what that did to Tatum. Tatum came off the back of last season scoring 30 points a game consistently for about a month, and then COVID hit. They came back in the bubble and they made a run, but they weren't a finished product. Tatum got COVID earlier this year and then started the season on a roll, but barely that, got COVID and then, it took a few weeks, and then recently he started to, maybe a month and a half, 2 months ago, he really kind of hit his stride again. And then recently he's had the 50-point game and the 60-point game. I still think there's something missing there. This team, Celtics team, is missing an identity from a continuity standpoint. Because there's no consistency in who's going to be on the floor every night. That means everyone's role changes every night. The best teams, championship teams, usually have players whose roles are defined. The team, everyone on that team recognizes their role being defined from starter on down. And it looks fluid. It looks complementary. In this case, we got to admit, they don't look complementary right now all the time. Sometimes they look amazingly complementary. And then other times it looks like, why can't you guys find a bucket for 5 minutes? Why is there so much ISO here? Don't do that. But you can't say don't do that when not everyone knows the rotations, and certain players know what they're seeing, so they try to do things that need to be done to make a play in the game. I don't know. I'm reserving judgment, but I'm going to keep reacting, and we're going to keep reacting. We're starting from here going forward back onto the Matrix. It's going to be highlighted Lakers and Celtics because those are the two teams that, historically are the franchise teams. And the Lakers I'm going to be highlighting because I do not want them to surpass the Celtics in championships, period. Their playoff fate comes down to LeBron's health and whether AD will ascend to being a superstar type of Hall of Famer who Joel Embiid is acting like this year. I haven't seen AD do what Joel Embiid is doing right now. Joel Embiid got players around him, and he still looks like just the most dominant force on earth. The Joker, Nikola Jokic, looks like the most dominant player on the court for his team, and I need to see AD step up and do that. But the Lakers are not my specialty. I just know what I know. And I don't want them to pass my Celtics. So, Melly Mel, holla at me. My 61 subscribers, holla at me. All right? Like the video. And then I'm going to come back with more every game. Let's do every game now. All right? Matrix, we out.